Imagine a brilliance so profound that it reshapes our understanding of the world. Yet, instead of admiration, society often dismisses or even persecutes such geniuses. Why is it that the most exceptional minds, those who could elevate humanity, are frequently ignored or misunderstood? Welcome to a journey into the mind of Schopenhauer and an exploration of why society tends to turn away from genuine genius. From historical examples to philosophical reflections, we'll uncover the complex dynamics that keep true brilliance in the shadows and discover how we might change our perception of greatness. In examining why society often turns away from true genius, it's essential to start with the observation that popular culture and societal norms tend to celebrate superficial talents rather than profound insight. From the outset, the collective admiration we see around us is often directed toward those who entertain or conform, not necessarily those who challenge or elevate human understanding. This preference creates an environment where mediocrity is not only tolerated but actively favored. Take, for example, the realm of entertainment. The celebrities that dominate our screens, pop stars, reality TV personalities, viral video sensations, are often celebrated for their instant gratification entertainment value rather than their intellectual or artistic depth. Their fame is fleeting, their talents are often superficial, yet society pours immense admiration upon them. Meanwhile, highly original thinkers, scientists or artists who dedicate years of their lives to genuine innovation frequently remain in obscurity, only gaining recognition long after their ideas have been proven or understood. If we look back through history, this pattern persists. Many groundbreaking scientists, inventors, and artists faced initial rejection or indifference. For example, Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, conducted experiments decades before the science was accepted. His work was largely ignored during his lifetime. Only later was his genius recognized as foundational. Similarly, Vincent van Gogh, now celebrated as one of the greatest painters of all time, sold only a few paintings during his life and was misunderstood by most of his contemporaries. Yet today, his depth and originality are undeniable and celebrated. Why does society neglect such genuine geniuses? One reason is that true innovation often disrupts existing norms and challenges the status quo. Genuine geniuses introduce ideas that threaten existing beliefs, social structures, or economic interests. This resistance to change creates an environment that prefers the familiar and the comfortable, those who perpetuate the status quo over those who push the boundaries of human thought or expression. Furthermore, society tends to reward conformity rather than originality. Educational systems, media, and social institutions have historically emphasized following established rules, memorizing facts, and adhering to popular narratives. This emphasis discourages dissent and unconventional thinking. As a result, creative minds that deviate from the norm often find themselves marginalized, misunderstood, or even vilified. Another factor is the immediacy of gratification in modern culture. With the rise of social media, fame can be achieved with a viral video, but that fame is often superficial and lacks depth. Such popularity is quick to fade, and it does not necessarily translate into lasting recognition of true genius. Consider the phenomenon of viral trends or meme culture, fascinating in their fleeting nature, yet often lacking substantive value. These fleeting moments of fame reflect society's preference for instant entertainment rather than prolonged engagement with meaningful ideas. This preference for superficiality also influences how we evaluate success. We tend to measure greatness by celebrity status, wealth, or popularity rather than by originality, depth, or societal contribution. The philosopher Schopenhauer observed that superficiality has become not just a cultural trait, but a defining feature of societal values. The media glorifies surface-level talents while dismissing or ignoring those who dedicate themselves to the pursuit of genuine truth and innovation. This phenomenon isn't just confined to art or science. It extends into politics, philosophy, and education. Politicians often favor rhetoric over authentic solutions, and educators tend to prioritize standardized testing over fostering original thinking. In these domains, society's alignment with mediocrity becomes apparent as the true geniuses, those who think differently and challenge authority, are pushed aside. Moreover, the societal tendency to favor mediocrity over genius can be seen as a reflection of our collective discomfort with the demanding nature of genuine greatness. True genius often requires extraordinary effort, intellectual rigor, and resilience. It confronts our comfortable assumptions and forces us to reevaluate our beliefs. This process can be unsettling, leading society to prefer the safety of superficiality rather than the discomfort of confronting deeper truths. In summary, society's tendency to favor mediocrity over genuine genius is deeply rooted in cultural, social, and psychological factors. It is driven by an innate preference for familiarity and comfort, a fear of change, and a tendency to reward superficial achievements rather than profound insights. This dynamic creates a landscape where true originality is undervalued, misunderstood, or outright ignored, setting the stage for why genuine geniuses often remain in the shadows rather than basking in society's applause. Understanding this imbalance is crucial if we want to foster an environment where true brilliance can flourish and be appreciated as it deserves. Schopenhauer held a rather bleak but profoundly insightful view of how society perceives and interacts with true genius. To understand the core reasons why society resists genuine greatness, we must first examine Schopenhauer's belief that the masses are driven more by herd instinct, superficial concerns, and a collective desire for comfort than by genuine appreciation for intellectual or artistic depth. At the heart of Schopenhauer's philosophy is the notion that the masses are primarily motivated by their own desires, passions, and the instinct to conform. Rather than valuing truth, beauty, or insight for their own sake, society's collective mentality tends to gravitate towards what is familiar, what is easy, and what does not threaten the established norms. To Schopenhauer, the average person is often incapable or unwilling to grasp the profound complexities of true genius, because such recognition requires a level of intellectual effort and openness that many are either unprepared for or uninterested in. This herd instinct manifests in multiple ways. Firstly, it encourages conformity. People tend to follow popular opinions, societal trends, and the preferences manufactured by media, politicians, and cultural institutions. Original thinkers or innovators who challenge popular beliefs become viewed solely as outsiders or disruptors, and society's predisposition is to reject or marginalize them. Schopenhauer believed this herd mentality is rooted in the desire for security and peace of mind. People find comfort in just going along rather than risking discomfort or alienation that comes with questioning the status quo. Furthermore, the masses derive a significant part of their identity from their collective identity, their tribe, their social class, their cultural group. Because of this, genuine genius that exposes flaws in the collective worldview threatens their psychological security. For example, a revolutionary artist or philosopher who questions prevailing moral or aesthetic standards unsettles the social order, creating discomfort and friction. The community's instinctive response is to dismiss these individuals, label them as dangerous or mad, or simply ignore their contributions. Their ideas don't align with the familiar narratives that reinforce social cohesion and personal identity. Schopenhauer also pointed out that the masses are largely driven by superficial passions, such as fear, greed, vanity, or prejudice, rather than rational appreciation or understanding. This means that they are often incapable of truly comprehending the depths of genuine genius because their minds are preoccupied with fleeting pleasures or concerns. For instance, the admiration of superficial beauty or momentary entertainment takes precedence over appreciating the subtlety of great art or the depth of profound philosophical insights. An illustrative example is how many groundbreaking scientific theories faced initial rejection or ridicule. Take the case of the heliocentric model of the solar system proposed by Copernicus. During his lifetime, it faced vehement opposition from the church and scientific authorities because it challenged deeply held beliefs about the universe. The societal resistance stemmed from a collective attachment to old doctrines and the discomfort of re-evaluating humanity's place in the cosmos. Only later, After persistent challenge and evidence, did society gradually accept this paradigm-shifting idea. This pattern repeats throughout history. Society resists ideas that threaten comfort and familiarity. Similarly, in arts, innovators like Beethoven or Picasso were often dismissed or misunderstood in their time. Their works challenged established standards and aesthetics. The masses, conditioned to prefer traditional forms, often rejected or ignored their revolutionary ideas. The social tendency was to cling to the familiar, even if that meant suppressing genius that could have expanded artistic boundaries much earlier. Schopenhauer believed that this herd mentality is reinforced by institutions like education and media, which emphasize conformity and superficial knowledge. Schools tend to focus on rote memorization and adherence to accepted curriculum, discouraging critical thinking or originality. Media, in turn, promotes the latest trends or celebrities rather than true intellectual or artistic achievement. In this way, society's collective attitude becomes a self-perpetuating cycle that undervalues and dismisses true geniuses. Another dimension of Schopenhauer's critique is that society perceives the philosopher, artist, or scientist who seeks truth as a troublemaker or a threat. Because genuine insight often involves challenging deeply held social, religious, or political beliefs, society's instinct is to suppress or ignore these individuals to preserve its comfortable illusions. The powerful prefer obedient thinkers who reinforce existing structures rather than disruptive geniuses who compel society to confront uncomfortable truths. From a psychological standpoint, the masses often project their own insecurities and fears onto the genius figure, perceiving them as alien or dangerous. As Schopenhauer suggested, true depth exposes the superficiality of societal values, causing discomfort. It's easier and safer for society to reject or ridicule intense thinkers than to confront their own ignorance or limitations. In essence, Schopenhauer saw society's relationship with genius as one characterized by a profound ambivalence. While society desires greatness, it simultaneously fears and dismisses the very individuals who could elevate it. The dynamic between society and true genius is complex, often marred by a powerful undercurrent of envy and resentment. Schopenhauer was keenly aware that when an individual's exceptional talent challenges societal norms or threatens established power structures, it can provoke not admiration but hostility. This negative reaction is rooted deeply in human psychology, the fundamental tendency of people to feel envious of those who excel beyond their own perceived limits. Such envy, when rooted in genuine respect or admiration, can inspire emulation. However, when it is accompanied by resentment, it becomes destructive, aiming to diminish or discredit the genius to restore a sense of equality or security. Genuine geniuses threaten the fragile ego of society because they stand as living proof that greatness exists beyond the ordinary. Their accomplishments serve as a mirror reminding others of their own potential limitations, inadequacies, and unfulfilled aspirations. This threat fuels resentment because it can awaken feelings of inferiority or jealousy among those who are comfortable with superficial success or mediocrity. It is easier and more emotionally comforting for the masses to dismiss the genius as misguided, mad, or morally inferior than to confront the possibility that they too could aspire to and achieve greater heights. Historically, many great minds faced bitter hostility and outright persecution because their ideas exposed uncomfortable truths or challenged the authority of entrenched interests. Consider the case of Galileo Galilei, whose support for heliocentrism not only defied the Church's literal interpretation of Scripture, but also questioned the prevailing social order. The hostility he faced was fueled by fear, jealousy, and the desire to maintain orthodoxy, even at the expense of truth. The hierarchical power structures saw Galileo's ideas as a threat. They threatened their authority and the societal order they upheld. The reaction was not admiration for his brilliance, but condemnation, exile, and slander. Similarly, the revolutionary psychologist Carl Jung encountered resistance and suspicion. His pioneering ideas about the unconscious mind and archetypes challenged both scientific orthodoxy and religious dogmas. Confronted with hostility from established institutions, Jung's work was often dismissed as mystical or unscientific. not because his ideas lacked merit, but because they destabilized the prevailing worldview and threatened the dogma of authority. Even in the realm of art and literature, the resentment towards truly original creators is evident. Vincent van Gogh, who painted with revolutionary boldness and raw emotional intensity, was ignored and mocked during his lifetime. Instead of recognizing his genuine genius, his contemporaries saw only an awkward outsider. His revolutionary style, which departed drastically from traditional aesthetic standards, made critics uncomfortable. Van Gogh's yearning to express profound truths through art was met with incomprehension and scorn, fueled partly by envy and partly by discomfort with radical departure from the familiar. This pattern of hostility often reveals itself in how society handles revolutionary thinkers. Schopenhauer believed that many genius figures are initially celebrated, but as their ideas grow more radical, or as their influence threatens existing institutions, they become targets of hostility. The more profound their insights, the more likely society is to react with hostility out of envy or fear. For example, Friedrich Nietzsche, with his profound critiques of morality, religion, and culture, was misunderstood and vilified in his lifetime. His ideas threatened religious and moral authorities, provoking bitter opposition. These reactions are often personalized, coming from individuals who harbor unconscious envy or resentment. A genius who surpasses their peers exposes their mediocrity or lack of vision. Humans have an innate tendency to compare themselves to others, and when someone's extraordinary achievements highlight what is missing or lacking in their own lives, it elicits feelings of envy. It is easier to attack the genius rather than confront the uncomfortable truths their work might reveal about oneself. Resentment can also be motivated by the societal desire to suppress or control unconventional ideas to preserve stability. Governments and religious institutions historically have persecuted thinkers and artists whose work questioned their authority. Societal resentment is often rooted in the fear that the genius's ideas will foster unrest or threaten the social order. This fear fuels conspiracy theories, censorship, and vilification campaigns, preventing true innovation from taking root or flourishing. Furthermore, the hostility toward genius is often intertwined with envy of the recognition and respect such individuals garner. Society tends to idolize success and greatness, but can react viciously when faced with someone who embodies that success through genuine talent. People resent their own perceived inadequacies and channel those feelings into hostility toward those who have achieved extraordinary things. This leads to the spread of slander, gossip, and even vilification, aiming to tarnish the reputation of the genius. A compelling example is the story of Socrates, who was condemned to death not because of his teachings, but because his ideas made powerful elites uncomfortable. Socrates questioned authority, morality, and tradition, challenges that threatened the social hierarchy. Throughout history, society has demonstrated a persistent aversion to radical change, especially when that change emanates from true genius. Schopenhauer observed that genuine insight and originality often threaten the comfort of established norms and the familiarity of the status quo. Humans are creatures of habit, and their collective psyche prefers consistency, routine, and predictability over upheaval and unpredictability. Consequently, when a remarkable individual introduces ideas that overturn traditional beliefs or radically alter accepted ways of doing things, society's natural instinct is to resist, sometimes with hostility. At the core of this resistance is the fundamental fear of the unknown. Radical change can evoke anxiety because it destabilizes the social, moral, or aesthetic foundations that people have relied on for stability and security. For example, in the realm of science, groundbreaking theories like Darwin's evolution by natural selection challenged the religious and cultural beliefs of the time. These ideas threatened the prevailing worldview that humanity was created in divine image and was the pinnacle of creation. The societal resistance to Darwinian evolution was fierce, fueled by religious dogma, social inertia, and fear of losing moral certainties. Many rejected or attacked Darwin's work, not because it lacked validity, but because it forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about their origins and purpose. Similarly, in art, Revolutionary movements such as Impressionism or Abstract Expressionism faced resistance from critics, institutions, and the public, who preferred traditional realistic portrayals that conformed to accepted standards of beauty and aesthetics. Artists like Monet or Jackson Pollock defied conventional rules, challenging viewers' perceptions and aesthetic norms. Their innovative styles made society uncomfortable because they disrupted the familiar and demanded a new way of seeing and appreciating art. This resistance was rooted in fear of losing a cultural identity and aesthetic stability that people believed defined their civilization's artistic heritage. Genuine geniuses, whether scientists, artists, philosophers, or inventors, often introduce ideas that are so radically different from conventional wisdom that their work is initially incomprehensible or outright rejected. Schopenhauer believed that society's instinctive fear of change leads to attempts to suppress or ignore such pioneering figures until their ideas can no longer be denied. These individuals are often ostracized, mocked, or dismissed because their innovation threatens to dismantle existing institutions, religious beliefs, moral codes, or social hierarchies. The resistance to change is compounded by institutional mechanisms of control that seek to preserve the status quo. Educational systems tend to reinforce traditional knowledge and discourage critical or unconventional thinking, favoring memorization over original inquiry. Religious authorities historically opposed scientific discoveries that conflicted with doctrinal teachings, viewing such knowledge as heretical and dangerous. Governments have often suppressed revolutionary thinkers whose ideas posed a threat to political stability or challenged authority. For instance, Nicholas Copernicus and Galileo Galilei faced persecution because their heliocentric theories questioned the Earth-centered universe endorsed by church doctrine and political power. Schopenhauer saw this ongoing pattern as rooted in human instinct, an uneasy combination of conservatism, fear of chaos, and an instinctive desire for social harmony that suppresses disruptive ideas before they can take root and flourish. The discomfort caused by revolutionary ideas stems from their potential to unsettle familiar arrangements and to force society to reevaluate its values and worldview. Because of this, change is often met with hostility, ridicule, or legal persecution, and genuine geniuses become casualties of this deeper societal fear. The societal resistance to radical change is also fueled by the fact that new ideas lend power to those who promote them, threatening existing power structures. A revolutionary scientist or philosopher can destabilize the political or religious authorities who rely on maintaining control through ignorance or tradition. Such figures often become targets precisely because their work empowers others to think independently and challenge corrupt or outdated systems. This fear of upheaval is not merely external, but also deeply internal. On a psychological level, people fear losing their sense of stability, certainty, and identity when faced with radical ideas that threaten their worldview. Geniuses, by introducing these ideas, expose the fragility of societal beliefs, making the masses uncomfortable. As a result, society often reacts instinctively to marginalize, ridicule, or persecute these disruptive figures. Schopenhauer believed that such reactions stem from a collective neurotic fear, an unconscious anxiety about losing the familiar, and a reluctance to face the chaos that true innovation can bring. This pattern is vividly illustrated in the tumult faced by revolutionary thinkers like Nietzsche, whose radical critiques of morality and religion upended centuries of cultural assumptions. His ideas, which called for a re-evaluation of values, provoked intense hostility, including personal vilification and social rejection. Nietzsche's radical departure from traditional moral systems exemplifies how society often reacts with hostility to those who challenge the foundations of its collective complacency. Moreover, societal resistance to change is often reinforced by fear of the economic consequences of radical innovation. Genuine geniuses frequently face the unfortunate fate of being misunderstood, misjudged, or dismissed by society because their perspectives, ideas, and visions are fundamentally different from the accepted norms. Schopenhauer recognized that true insight often appears as a foreign element, an alien truth that the collective consciousness struggles to comprehend or accept because it challenges deeply ingrained beliefs, traditions, and conventions. To understand why society so often misjudges geniuses, one must first consider the nature of their greatness. True genius, whether in art, science, or philosophy, does not conform to conventional standards. It often insists on breaking them. What society perceives as brilliant or insightful is usually what aligns with its existing worldview. Conversely, ideas that threaten this worldview, by their very nature, are perceived as disruptive or even dangerous. Because of this, society tends to interpret genius not in terms of its intrinsic value, but through the lens of existing beliefs and biases. Take, for example, the case of Nikola Tesla, who envisioned revolutionary ways to harness electrical energy. His visions and scientific innovations were so far ahead of their time that many of his ideas were ridiculed or dismissed. Their scientific community, rooted in classical physics and pragmatic constraints, found it difficult to accept Tesla's more speculative notions about wireless energy and free power. Society at large, influenced by skepticism and traditional scientific paradigms, saw Tesla's radical ideas as eccentric or delusional rather than as profound insights that could fundamentally change the world. Similarly, in philosophy, Socrates was misunderstood and vilified long after his death. His method of questioning authority and exposing inconsistencies in societal beliefs challenged the very foundations of Athenian democracy and religious dogma. People reacted not with curiosity or respect, but with suspicion and hostility because his ideas threatened their social fabric and the unquestioned authority of tradition. In art, the stubborn misconception and misjudgment of geniuses are especially evident. Vincent van Gogh, whose revolutionary style was far ahead of its time, was misunderstood and rejected by his contemporaries. The impressionistic and post-impressionistic techniques he developed were radically different from the academic standards of the era. Critics labeled his work as strange, foolish, or crude because it failed to conform to traditional notions of beauty and technique. Society's aesthetic biases prevented him from gaining recognition until after his death, when a new appreciation of his revolutionary vision emerged. This pattern underscores how society often clings to outdated aesthetic standards and perceives genuine innovation as aberration, an error rather than an evolution. The case of Darwin's theory of evolution illustrates the misunderstandings faced by revolutionary ideas. When Charles Darwin proposed natural selection, it was met with hostility and skepticism from religious, social, and scientific quarters. Many could not reconcile the idea of a slow, natural process of evolution with their literal interpretation of religious texts. They misunderstood Darwin's insights, viewing them as a threat to divine authority and moral order. It took decades for the scientific community and society at large to gradually accept and comprehend the significance of his work. Geniuses are often misunderstood because their perspectives emerge from a fundamentally different worldview, one that sees beyond the immediate, the superficial, or the conventional. Their insights are the product of heightened perception, deep reflection, and a willingness to challenge the prevailing myths that society holds sacred. However, society tends to interpret this different worldview as eccentricity, madness, or error because it cannot see the truth behind the genius's vision. Thus, society's misjudgment is a defense mechanism, an attempt to dismiss outright what might threaten its existing beliefs and comfort. Furthermore, the tendency to misjudge genius is reinforced by the fact that genuine insights often require time to be appreciated. When new ideas are revolutionary, society is initially skeptical because they are unfamiliar, sometimes initially absurd or incomprehensible. Most groundbreaking discoveries or philosophies are only recognized as such long after their creators have died or their ideas have been refined and adapted. This delay stems from society's natural conservatism and aversion to change, as well as its cognitive inability to process radical departures from the norm in real time. The misjudgment of geniuses isn't always just an error, but sometimes a collective refusal, an unwillingness to confront uncomfortable truths or acknowledge the limits of current knowledge. It's easier to dismiss revolutionary ideas as misguided than to re-evaluate entrenched beliefs or admit to the possibility that one has been unknowingly living within a limited worldview. This psychological defense mechanism helps society maintain a sense of order and stability, even if it comes at the cost of stagnation and the suppression of progress. Schopenhauer pointed out that many geniuses are ahead of their time because their insights emerge from a deeper, more profound understanding of reality, one that is inaccessible to the majority. As a result, society misjudges their contributions because they fail to appreciate. In today's world, society's obsession with superficial success, celebrity culture, viral fame, and instant gratification has deepened the divide between surface appearances and genuine achievement. Schopenhauer recognized that this societal trend has profound implications for how we value talent, insight, and originality. Instead of rewarding depth and true greatness, modern culture often elevates transient sensations, creating a landscape where superficiality is celebrated while authentic genius is marginalized or forgotten. One of the clearest examples of this phenomenon is the dominance of popular culture, where celebrities, social media influencers, and pop stars dominate public attention. These figures often attain fame through attractive appearances, catchy tunes, or viral moments, attributes that are easy to consume and fleeting in their impact. Their success hinges on immediate emotional stimulation, laughs, shock and awe, rather than meaningful contribution. The cycle is relentless, with fleeting trends rising and falling in mere weeks or months, leaving little room for the slow, painstaking process of genuine creative or intellectual development. Viral internet sensations exemplify this trend perfectly. A video can explode overnight, reaching millions, yet its impact on cultural or intellectual progress remains minimal. Such phenomena are ephemeral. They offer instant entertainment but rarely foster deep reflection or lasting influence. The danger here is that society's core values become skewed toward the shallow, rewarding those who excel at capturing attention for brief moments rather than those who dedicate their lives to sustained, meaningful innovation. Meanwhile, true intellectual or artistic achievement, something that requires years, even decades of disciplined effort, receives comparatively little recognition. Think about artists like J.S. Bach or Beethoven. Their rigorous compositions, deep emotional expression, and innovative techniques laid the groundwork for generations, yet they often remain only appreciated by a niche audience during their lifetime. Their revolutionary ideas challenged aesthetic norms and demanded active engagement and understanding from their audience. In contrast, modern society's quick-fix mentality prefers a hit song or a viral meme, something consumable and non-demanding, providing instant emotional highs but no lasting intellectual or artistic growth. This fixation on superficial success affects education as well. Instead of cultivating curiosity, original thinking, and deep understanding, many educational systems prioritize rote memorization, standardized testing, and superficial compliance. Students are rewarded not for their originality, but for their ability to conform and regurgitate accepted knowledge. Critics have pointed out how this stifles creative potential and discourages independent thought, precisely the qualities that genuine geniuses embody. The media amplifies this superficial skew by focusing heavily on celebrity gossip, scandal, and sensational stories. News outlets and social platforms cater to the craving for entertainment, often at the expense of serious intellectual debate. As a consequence, society becomes habituated to valuing entertainment over enlightenment, surface over substance. This creates a cultural environment where the very qualities that foster genuine genius, depth, patience, originality, resilience, are undervalued and overlooked. Another consequence of society's fixation on superficial success is the elevation of mediocrity as the norm. Because superficial talents are easier to produce, market, and consume, they become the standard that everyone aspires to emulate, if they aspire to anything at all. The widespread admiration of viral sensations reinforces the idea that quick fame is attainable and preferable over the slow, arduous process of genuine achievement. This fuels a culture of instant validation, where social media likes, shares, and views become the metrics of worth rather than meaningful contributions or original insights. In the realm of business and entrepreneurship, we see similar trends. Startups and entrepreneurs often chase viral products or hype-driven innovations rather than sustainable, groundbreaking ideas. The allure of quick profits and immediate fame encourages a focus on gimmicks or superficial trends rather than enduring value. As a result, society rewards superficial accomplishments, such as millions of followers or viral marketing campaigns, more than the genuine creative or scientific breakthroughs that require years of careful investigation and refinement. The entertainment industry, too, exemplifies this imbalance. Blockbuster movies, sensationalist news stories, and pop music often prioritize spectacle and shock value over substance. With box office hits or chart-topping singles, superficial qualities, flashiness, humor, or controversy are often the deciding factors, while artistic integrity, philosophical depth, or technical mastery are secondary. The audience's consumption habits reinforce this trend, creating a self-perpetuating cycle where superficiality is not just preferred but expected. Society's fixation on superficial success also influences personal aspirations. Young people, bombarded with images of fleeting fame and superficial achievement, often aspire to become social media celebrities rather than pursue meaningful, long-term goals rooted in mastery or contribution. This shift sidelines the pursuit of excellence, originality, and truth, traits associated with genuine genius, and instead emphasizes image, popularity, and instant recognition. This cultural environment discourages patience and perseverance, qualities essential for true innovation. Schopenhauer's philosophy offers a profound insight into the root cause of society's resistance and hostility toward genuine genius. He believed that this rejection is fundamentally linked to society's collective aversion to truth itself. Real genius, whether in science, art, philosophy, or other realms, often involves unveiling truths that are uncomfortable, unsettling, or counterintuitive to prevailing norms. These truths challenge the superficial fabric of societal illusions, forcing individuals and communities to confront their own limitations, ignorance, and the fragile veneer of their constructed realities. At the core of Schopenhauer's thought is the idea that human beings, psychologically, tend to avoid confronting uncomfortable realities. The human condition is characterized by a fundamental desire to seek comfort, security, and illusion, which shields individuals from the starkness of truth. Genuine insight cuts through these illusions, revealing the deeper, often darker aspects of existence, whether it's the painful understanding of mortality, meaninglessness, or the relentless struggle underlying all life. As Schopenhauer famously argued, the world we experience is largely a surface appearance, an illusion, and it takes the boldness of a true genius to pierce this veil and glimpse the underlying reality. Society's collective aversion to this process explains why genuine genius is so often rejected or misunderstood. When a thinker or artist reveals a truth that contradicts societal beliefs, such as the impermanence of values, the futility of material pursuits, or the emptiness behind superficial appearances, people instinctively feel threatened. This is because these truths undermine their sense of security and challenge their constructed identities. To avoid confronting these uncomfortable realities, society tends to dismiss or vilify such truth-tellers, preferring instead to cling to comforting illusions. Schopenhauer emphasized that most people are content with superficial truths, things that reinforce their comfort zones and do not demand intellectual or emotional upheaval. It is easier to believe in a comforting ideology or societal narrative than to accept the often grim truths that genuine insight uncovers. This collective preference for superficiality is a safeguard, an unconscious shield against the existential anxiety that comes with seeing the world clearly and honestly. The discomfort with the truth is also rooted in the human instinct for self-preservation, which manifests psychologically as a tendency to avoid acknowledging one's limitations or the uncomfortable realities of existence. Geniuses, by their very nature, force society to face these truths, pushing the boundaries of accepted beliefs. This process can threaten the collective sense of order and stability, provoking hostility rooted in an unconscious fear that acknowledging the truth might lead to chaos or moral decline. Furthermore, Schopenhauer believed that this aversion to truth is reflected in the cultural and intellectual history of humanity. Religions, ideologies, and cultural narratives have historically been built around comforting illusions, prophecies, moral codes, and dogmas that shield believers from the terrifying emptiness or absurdity of existence. When genuine insight challenges or deconstructs these illusions, society reacts defensively, often with hostility and repression. Think of the Inquisition's persecution of scientists and philosophers in the Middle Ages, or the suppression of revolutionary ideas during times of political upheaval. The philosophical implication here is profound. Genuine genius does not merely propose new theories or artworks. It often reveals a deeper, more profound understanding of the world, an understanding that can shatter illusions and force individuals and society to confront uncomfortable truths. Schopenhauer argued that the reason society resists such truths is not due to a lack of intelligence, but because acknowledging them demands a willingness to face oneself honestly, without illusion, and to accept the inherent suffering and incompleteness of existence. This confrontation with truth is psychologically taxing. It requires an act of will, an act of courage, to accept a reality that may be painful, nihilistic, or radically different from accepted beliefs. As Schopenhauer posited, most people prefer the comforting lies of religion, tradition, or superficial success than the arduous pursuit of truth, which often leads to despair or disillusionment. Genuine geniuses, therefore, become natural enemies of this comforting falsehood, embodying the uncomfortable truth that most prefer to ignore. Schopenhauer also believed that the societal tendency to reject truth is intertwined with the human desire for control and mastery over their environment and self-understanding. When a genius reveals truths that are uncontrollable or unsettling, it challenges human hubris and the illusion of mastery. Consequently, society's response is often to dismiss or suppress these truths, to avoid the destabilization they threaten. In summary, the profound philosophical insight from Schopenhauer is that society's turning away from genuine genius is ultimately rooted in its innate resistance to truth. True insight exposes the superficial layers of reality that society clings to, layers that provide comfort and a false sense of mastery. As we reach the culmination of this exploration into why society turns away from genuine genius, it becomes clear that a profound shift is needed, one that encourages us to look beyond superficial appearances and superficial successes and to cultivate an environment that truly values depth, originality, and profound insight. Recognizing the underestimated, misunderstood, and often rejected geniuses of history is not just an academic exercise. It is a call to re-evaluate our cultural priorities and personal aspirations. It is about fostering a collective mindset that rewards perseverance, originality, and truth, a mindset that elevates genuine talent over fleeting trends. If you found truth and insight in what we've discussed, I invite you to reflect on how society's undervaluation of true genius affects us all, how it limits our personal growth, our cultural development, and our collective progress. Society often celebrates the shallow and dismisses the profound, but that doesn't have to be our future. We can choose to acknowledge the power and importance of genuine insight, fostering environments, our communities, our schools, our platforms that honor authenticity and deep understanding. We can learn to appreciate the quiet heroism of thinkers and creators whose work challenges the status quo, even when it's uncomfortable or misunderstood. We can support voices that seek to unveil the truths hidden beneath the surface, rather than those who merely entertain or conform. By doing so, we not only honor the legacy of brilliant minds who have changed the world, but also help nurture the potential within ourselves and others to pursue genuine excellence. And that is why I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, you become part of a community dedicated to exploring the deepest questions of human nature, greatness, and truth. Here, we delve into the lives and ideas of forgotten geniuses, revolutionary thinkers, and inspiring stories of perseverance against the odds. Together, we can challenge superficiality and build a culture that rewards originality, patience, and profound insight. Subscribing isn't just about following a channel, it's about committing to a mindset, one that values deep learning, critical thinking, and authentic exploration. It's about choosing to stand apart from a culture obsessed with instant fame and superficial success, and instead cultivating a life rooted in curiosity, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of truth. As you join us, you will gain access to stories of groundbreaking innovators who refused to bow to societal pressures, thinkers who challenged dominant paradigms, and everyday courageous individuals who embody the spirit of genuine genius. You will be empowered to see the world through a deeper lens, to question instead of accept, and to appreciate the silent, often unseen work of true creators and innovators. Remember, the world is in desperate need of more genuine geniuses, people who can see beyond the superficial, who are willing to confront uncomfortable truths, and who persist despite misunderstanding or opposition. You too can be part of this shift. Whether as a thinker, a creator, or simply a conscious observer, your perspective matters. By choosing to support and amplify genuine talent and insight, you help create a future where depth and originality are celebrated, where truth is valued over illusion, and where human potential can truly flourish. So, I encourage you now, please subscribe to this channel. Join us as we continue to explore the profound mysteries of greatness, and let us build a community that recognizes and celebrates the true geniuses among us. Together, we can challenge the superficial and unlock the deeper truths that inspire, transform, and elevate humanity. Thank you for being here, for your curiosity, and for your desire to seek what truly matters. Hit that subscribe button and be part of this journey into understanding the depths of human potential, because genuine genius deserves our recognition and appreciation now more than ever.